seeing this beautiful photograph of Baba, which I don't like to block for anyone who can't see over me, but seeing this beautiful photograph of Baba, I can't resist saying that watching Elizabeth in 1969 take darshan after Baba left the physical body, and all those years of being with Baba, living with Baba, to see Elizabeth and Kitty go to take Baba's darshan in 1969 was an extraordinary experience when they first went to Baba's tomb shrine. And I remember watching closely because, of course, Elizabeth was my link to Baba, and it meant so much to be there at that time. But I also was a little concerned about how she might feel and what it would be like for her to go for the first time to Baba's tomb. And so I was with her as she went in. And those of you who knew Elizabeth Patterson remember that it was difficult for her to walk, and she was very stooped, and it was hard for her to bend over, but she did, and she managed to get down on her knees and take Baba's darshan, and then she managed to get back up very slowly, and she came out of the tomb. And I said to her outside the tomb, I said, well, Andy Boo, what did you experience there? Or something like that. I couldn't resist asking her. And she said, well, she said, after I got down, and I put my head down, and she said, I didn't know quite what to think. But she said, then I looked up, and I saw Baba, of course, this photograph, and she said, and what do you think? Baba was saying in this photograph, I'm not there, I'm here. And she said, so you see, that's how it is. And I always remember that when I see that photograph. And it is how it is tonight. Certainly Baba is with us. And I'm so grateful to Baba, not only that he continues to be with us, but that he would gather us all together in his love. It's such a wonderful thing. And for me, it's wonderful to be back after, I guess, it's at least a decade since I've been here at this place. And none of you have changed a bit. No, the truth is that a few people, I had to look twice. I did, but graying hair and all that. You know how we're all aging at the same rate. And but you know, we're still vigorous. We all look good to each other as long as we keep going at the same rate. And we say, "Oh, you look great. You know, you look great. You haven't changed at all." But it's so wonderful. It's wonderful to be on the same program with Meru, such a great privilege, and my old friends Bob and Jane Brown, and to see so many people who love Baba so much and who kept Baba's work alive for so many years. It just is inspiring. Dear Adele, to see her again, and to be with everyone. I can't help also but think of Richard Nimler because I associate coming here with Dick because I would always arrive in a Corvette. It's the only time in my life I've ever arrived anywhere in style was with Dick Nimler, and I somehow feel him here tonight too and remember him. This is really one of the great events in Baba's family. There's no doubt about it. And the people who make it possible work so hard, but of course Baba inspires people to that work. In thinking about this, I thought of a theme to share with you. It's a very personal one, but then almost everything you talk about with Baba is very personal. And it has to do with Baba in our hearts and Baba living in our hearts. And as I was thinking about it, one of my favorite passages from Scripture came to mind, from the New Testament. And you may remember this scene. It's at the Last Supper in the Gospel of John. And Jesus tells his disciples, according to John, he says, "Now I go my way to him that sent me. Nevertheless, I tell you the truth. It is expedient for you that I go away. For if I go not away, the Comforter will not come unto you. But if I depart, I will send him to you." And I thought of that because it seems to me that the miracle of the Christ, or the avatar, is precisely that. The miracle of the Christ is that he leaves in order to come. It's also unique to the Christ. There's no other aspect of God like that. Where he comes, he takes form so that when he leaves, he can really come. He can really arrive. With all the rest of us, when we drop our form, we leave. And when we come again, we're starting again, a new life in a new way. But with him, when he drops his form, it's the beginning of his taking part in our lives. It's the beginning of his real presence with us. Or you could say, I think of it as the beginning of his life in our hearts, living within our hearts. Or it's as though he lives his entire life in the world in a form to prepare for living this life now, this new life with each of us. And I even feel that one could be stronger about it and say that everything that Baba did in his life, everything, was for that, was for this time. And if it isn't so, if he really isn't here, if he isn't living in our hearts, then he can't be the Christ, because that is what it means to be the Christ. At least that's how Baba seemed to be telling us about how it is to be the Christ. Now, for me, as for everybody, this is a discovery that takes many years and is a long story. But the heart of the story for me begins when I was a child. So I want to tell something of my story of how I came to discover that this is in fact the case, that Baba must leave in order to come and to live in our hearts. My part of the story begins really when Baba first left me, and that was in 1958. And it's as though when you fall in love with someone, the last thing you want to do is to see them leave. And the most painful notion is that they won't be there. And so loving Baba, or falling in love with Baba for the first time, seeing him, wanting to be with him every moment, and then to face that he was not going to be there, that he was going to leave, was one of the most painful moments in my life with Baba. Painful because I really didn't know what was going to happen. And naturally, a child, 8-year-old child, doesn't think intellectually, he is this or that and this will be all right. I don't know, maybe the adults felt the same way. But I certainly felt that his leaving was going to be profoundly difficult and painful. And I remember that the men were called to say goodbye. The women were called and the men were called to say goodbye to Baba. And my brother and I were in school. It was a terrible thing, school. But it was also terrible to be in school at that moment. But you see, children were only supposed to be at the programs, at the barn and so forth, very rarely. And children, there was a special children's program and all that. So because we lived in Myrtle Beach, I guess the path of least resistance was to keep us in school until after then after the program was over in the barn, then we could come. Now, I found various ways to get around this rule, and I struggled with it the whole time Baba was there, fought against it. But this particular day, I lost, and I was in school, and I missed this time to say goodbye. And I was devastated, as you can imagine, because I thought, well, I've missed my opportunity to say goodbye to Baba. It was bad enough to know that he was actually leaving. It's a strange thing, but the whole time he was there, I never thought that he would leave. I don't know why, but it just never occurred to me that he would leave. And then suddenly, he was leaving. And so, I missed the chance. But as Elizabeth used to say many years after that, she would tell me growing up, she would say, well, Baba will take away the rhinestones, but he'll give you the diamond. And it was the case. Baba took away that opportunity, but then he gave something even greater in its place. Because then Baba found out that my brother and I had missed saying goodbye with the other men, and he said that we should come separately for a special time to say goodbye. Yeah. Which, of course, is much more wonderful, you know. I was very selfish about Baba as a child. I still am, but I haven't improved on that score much. But selfish in the sense that I didn't want to share Baba with all these other people. So it was good news to me. My brother, you know, I didn't really even want him there, but what could I do? So we went, and it was particularly sweet because my mother and sister had to wait outside in the car, you know, outside Baba's compound while we went in. It was wonderful. And so we got to go in by ourselves, and as I was walking in, I remember I began to suddenly realize that this was not so great after all, because I was saying goodbye to Baba. And I simply didn't know how to do it. I didn't know what to say. I didn't want to say it. And I began to feel very, very sad and upset, and I didn't want to go in the room. It was the only time I was in Baba's house with Baba, because, you know, Baba didn't see people ordinarily in his house, in the lagoon cabin or the barn. So it was special to go in the house, but I felt very sad. And I went in the room, and Baba was seated in this yellow chair that's still in the living room of Baba's house. And he looked at us, you know, and he had us come to him, and he embraced us and all that. And then we stood there. And Baba was so sweet, you know, and perceptive. Won't surprise you to know that the Avatar was perceptive, but why I say that with some surprise. Of course he was perceptive. But, you know, for a child, looking back, I think, how Baba, you know, we think, well, Baba knows the heart of everybody and everything, but now one looks back and realizes that Baba responded to everybody just with what they needed. And he looked at us, and he looked very serious. And Baba said, now, I'm going to give you something. And he took the bowl next to him. He took a big handful of candy, and he took my hand and he put it in my hand. And then he did the same for my brother, John. And Baba said, now, Baba said, I want you to listen very carefully, because I'm going to give you an order. And then, you know, suddenly I stopped thinking about saying goodbye, because that's the first time Baba had given me an order. So I was stunned, and I was listening, and Baba said, this prasad, this candy, is for you. It's for you. This candy is for you. This candy is for you. Baba looked very serious. And I'm standing there like this. Yes, Baba. Now, one thing. Yes, Baba. You can eat this candy now. All of it. or you can eat it as you want. But you must eat it all yourself. You must eat all this, and you must eat all of this yourself. You must not give it to anyone. Not even your sister. Well, of course, this is a very difficult order. I mean, can you imagine for a child the perfect order? Do not share with, and do not share with your sister. Oh, what a great order! The last great order he gave me, actually. They've all been tough after that, but that was easy. And I remember completely forgetting everything else because I was clutching this candy, trying to remember all the details. And Baba gave me a kiss goodbye and all, and then we left. And he had lifted that sadness. And somehow that order kept him with me in that candy, eating that candy. But when he left, when that plane left the ground and he physically left Myrtle Beach, it was a leave-taking that was painful for everybody. And I remember coming to the center after that and walking through the woods and wondering about him, thinking about him, missing him. And I began to wonder, does he remember me? And this must be something everybody must ask themselves who loves Baba. I mean, after all, I was discovering then what we all take for granted now, that he is accepted and believed to be the avatar, the Christ. That he says, more than that, he says that he is that. Now I was just discovering that. I didn't know that. And so I was discovering all of this, that he was God in human form, that he was the Buddha, that he was Jesus, that he was Muhammad. And this petrified me. Because if he is all that, if he is God in human form, the living Christ, then once he's back in India, which to me could have been another planet, then does he remember me? How could he remember me? And I began to get anxious about this. And the anxiety built more and more as I walked around the center. I remember it. And I began to think, well, after all, if he's that, then he's a very busy man. I mean, he's got a lot of things on his mind, after all. And I mean, I went to Sunday school. I know it's a big job. Being Christ, it's not a little job, and there's a lot of work to do, and that was what I would think about. And I think, well, he maybe once in a while he might think of me, and then I'd think, well, no, how could he think of me? There are all these people here. He can't remember all these people, and then there must be all these other people in India. And I remember walking around the center trying to remember him and writing very bad poetry, with wonderful lines like, my love is as thick as any board, things like that. Was not John Milton, I can assure you. It was the best I could do in the state I was in. Actually, I've given up poetry after that. It was, and I reached the kind of height of despair. The thing is, I wouldn't tell anybody. I wouldn't tell Auntie Boo, Elizabeth. I wouldn't tell Kitty. Wouldn't tell my mother. I wouldn't say. I'd be happy, and because I was really embarrassed to be thinking such things. Why should he think of me when he has all this to do? And just as that reached its climax, this is, as you know Baba as well as I, it's typical of Baba, just as it was reaching the point where I really felt despair about it, a letter arrived from Mani to Elizabeth and Kitty. And Annie Boo called me to hear this letter. And I went in her room, and she said, "Now, I want you to hear this part of the letter that Mani's written." And I said, "Mani is written?" "Yes, Mani is Baba's sister." And I had not met Mani, but already felt I knew her because she was Baba's pen for us. We heard from Baba through her. And in this letter, Mani describes Baba having the film shown of the 1958 Sahavas in Myrtle Beach for the women Mandali, for Mera and all the women Mandali, you see, who weren't there. So Baba was showing to them the Sahavas. And in the letter, Mani said, and every time Charles's little white head would pop up in the film, Baba would lean forward and say, "That's Charles." Like and Wendy too. "That's Wendy," like that. And as soon as she read me that, then I knew, that he hadn't forgotten me, that he did remember me. And I also began to realize that Baba knows your heart, and he will find a way to let you know he knows your heart. Nobody else will know why it's significant to you, but Baba knows, and he never lets the heart down. He always lets you know that he knows your deepest heart. And another letter came on top of that, a family letter, which included a beautiful message that for everyone, where Baba said, "The only place that can hold me is the heart. Keep me close with you. I am always there." And in those days, we could not write to India and say, "This is something, Baba, that we want your advice." There were strict rules, because Baba was working in seclusion. So unless it was an urgent matter of work, and I could never find anything quite in my life to rise to that level, so I could never really bring anything to Baba's attention. And Baba was pushing all of us to find him within ourselves. And if something did get through to Baba about some work that someone was doing that was important work, often, I remember, the message would come back and Baba would say something like, "Do your best. Do what you feel is best. And I will be there helping you." So Baba again was having us find that guidance within ourselves. So between 58 and 62, it was more and more a process for all, I think, those who had lived with him for many years and who now lived in the West, all who were used to for many years asking Baba everything, about jobs, about the center, about whatever. Now it was do your best. Do what you feel to be the best, and I will be there helping you. So I began to find Baba in myself. And I felt closer and closer to him. I felt as though there was a companionship, someone that would help me and would love me. And it wasn't until I got on the plane and arrived in India in 1962 at the East-West Gathering that I began to wonder, is that Baba that I've been living with in my heart, is that Baba, Baba? Now, again, I was 13, and it was a very difficult time in life. as it is for everybody who's 13. And I began to wonder, and perhaps this is the same thing everybody wonders with Baba at some point, or at several points. I know and feel Baba, but is that Baba? Now, it's one thing to wonder that. There's another thing to be going to see him and also be taking him and wondering whether they are the same and whether Baba would be Baba, if you want to say that. And I also wondered whether, because my Baba, of course, was one that had grown with me from 1958, grown in me as my companion, and I didn't know. Maybe this was just in me. And so the first day when we went, and again, it was men and women went separately the first day to see Baba, and I was with the men in this line, and we were lined up all outside Guru Prasad. And I remember tremendous anxiety about this as we were getting closer and closer to the doors of the room where Baba sat. I remember thinking, what will I do? Can it really be Baba? Will I recognize him? Will we know each other? And I got through the door into the room. And as I stepped over the threshold into the big room in Guru Prasad where Baba sat, I couldn't see Baba because the people were lined up in front. But I suddenly saw Baba's hand, a gesture like this. And it was very expressive, so just his hand was in the air. And as soon as I saw Baba's hand, I knew that was Baba. Well, I mean, of course it was Baba. I didn't think they were misleading me that Meher Baba was not in the room. But it was Baba, and my Baba. It's different, I mean, you know what I mean. We have Baba in ourselves, and it's our Baba. Yeah, there's Baba out here, and there's your Baba and your Baba, but there's my Baba. And that's a very unique and different matter than just Baba. And it was him. And I don't know why that gesture made me know that, but I was completely assured. And then I went in the room, and of course, everything from then was as though it were the day after he left in 1958. It was just the same. There is one event during that East-West gathering that made me, for all time and in the deepest parts of myself, realize that this is true of Baba, that he lives in our hearts, and that the one we find deep in ourselves is truly the one that we wait for, truly the one. Some of you have heard me tell this, but it fits so well with what I want to say that I'm going to tell the story again. And it happened like this, that some of us as children got the idea to come and see Baba early. Not to see Baba, because we didn't know we would see Baba, but to come to Guru Prasad early and to be there. My motive was that if we got to Guru Prasad early, then when the doors opened, we could get up front and be near Baba. So my motive was to get as early as possible, wait next to the door, and then when the door opened, to rush to the front. Now, the others who wanted to walk early were all girls, young girls. And they simply went to Mara in the women mandali, and they must have asked Mara, and they asked if it was all right if they could come early. And they got permission. But that left me out, because I couldn't go to Mara. I had never met Mara. And of course, I couldn't go to see Mara, being a boy. And Elizabeth was very strict about that growing up, so I wouldn't even think of it. As a matter of fact, even though I was a little boy when I first met Baba, Elizabeth never even showed me a picture of Mara. And whenever Mara would come up in a conversation, and if Elizabeth saw me in the room, she would stop talking about Mara. So I never heard of Mara, I never saw a photograph of Mara. So I knew that that was not an option for me. And I was very envious. And though I was a shy child, I was not to be outdone, and I felt that this was not fair, that these girls would get to go and be there early, and I could picture them all standing at the door opening, and they would all get up in front of Baba. So something had to be done about this, and I decided to take matters in my hand, and that afternoon I went up on the stage where Baba was seated in front of the 5,000 people who had come for darshan, or however many thousands there were. And I was very nervous, but I thought what I'll do is I'll ask Erich. After all, if they can go to Mara, then maybe I can go to Erich. A reasonable assumption. So I waited until Baba was giving out his love, and he was very tired and all, but he was giving out so much love. He was so beautiful. Unless I had seen it, I would never have believed, but you could almost see that love flowing out of him. It was almost material, physical. And each person would come, and Baba would touch them, and they would touch Baba's knees, and Baba would caress them, and they would go on, and then the next person. For hours and hours, Baba gave out so much love like this, for hours. It was really so wonderful to sit there and watch Baba pour his love out. But at one point, Baba went like this and stopped the women on one side, the men on the other, and stopped the lines. And I saw my opportunity, because then Erich wasn't so busy, and he was just standing in the back behind Baba. And I walked up to Erich and I said, Erich, can I have permission? I want to walk early in the morning. I want to come to Guru Prasad before the bus. And Erich looked at me and said, yeah, what can I do? You know. He's so bad, isn't he? It would have been so easy for him. Sure, you can walk early. You know, and he could have done it too, you know. But he knew that I was eminently teasable, and that he could get a lot of mileage out of this. That's how I think of it now, because now I know him better, and I know that's how he thinks, you know. He said, Baba's given the order, you know, you come in the bus and all that. And I looked so disappointed, you know. I said, but the girls are getting then, you know, he said, yeah, but that's the women's side. And I said, but what about me? And I said, well, there's nothing to do. You must ask him. I said, him? And I looked over there, you know, Baba of course was, you know, seated watching the people and all that. And I said, you can't ask him, Erich. And Erich said, yeah, come on, why, you know, come on, you know, you can do it, you know. And so he takes me over in front of Baba, to the side of Baba's chair. And by this time now I'm just like this. Not because I'm afraid of Baba. I was natural with Baba. I mean, Baba was the last one to fear, but because I was embarrassed and nervous, self-conscious. I mean, in front of all these thousands of people, you know, to be asking this trivial question, you know. And, you know, and Baba's giving darshan to people. And he has thousands of people waiting in line and all that to take up his time with this. And I thought, well, what will Baba think of me? But Erich urged me, you know, so I didn't have any choice. I got up next to Baba, and I looked out and I saw all these people staring at me. And I could imagine what they were thinking, you know, what does he want? And then I tried to ask Baba the question, and I had such a difficult time getting it out. I kind of stuttered, you know, something about, oh, Baba, I wanted to walk early. And Erich, meanwhile, is helping me out in Gujarati, you know. Yeah, I don't know what he was saying, but apparently making my English clear to Baba because I was not clear about what I was asking Baba. And of course, the audience probably thought, this is a big crisis for this poor child. You know? Because Baba turned and looked at me, you know, this serious expression, like this is the great cosmic question. You know? Only Baba can look this serious, you know. And I'm standing there. By this time, I'm like this. And Baba is looking as though he's having a hard time with this question, you know. It seemed like forever. I'm sure it wasn't. And Baba looks up at Erich as if he needs some advice on this. Now I know Baba was also enjoying this very much. And finally, Baba, after what seemed an eternity, Baba couldn't stop himself, and he smiled like this, burst out smiling, and Baba said, yeah, you can walk early. Like that. And then he gave me a kiss. It's worth it to ask, you know. It doesn't matter how trivial you think it is, it's worth asking Baba. Ever since then, you know, I asked Baba, put everything before Baba. You just never know. And he also always gives a kiss, even if he says no. But fortunately, he says yes on this occasion. And the next morning, I do walk early to see Baba. And I remember arriving at Guru Prasad and getting on the porch, and all the girls that walked with me disappearing into the women's side. Because, of course, they were girls, and they got to do that. And I'm sure they got all kinds of special things and treatment and all that. I don't know what they did in there. But I was, a little sad to be a boy, but I was stuck. So I stood on there all by myself. I don't know why none of the other boys thought of this coming early, but I was the only one. And I stood there. I was by myself. But being 13, you know, the curiosity got the best of me, and I went up to the door of Guru Prasad, these big French doors, and I took the curtain and I peeked inside the room to see the room where we would be with Baba later. I just couldn't help myself. I immediately closed it because there was Baba. He was sitting there. The room is this big, maybe bigger, so he's at the far end of the room on the sofa, and Baba was just seated on the sofa by himself, no one else, and he was just seated there. And he was waiting for us to arrive. He was already waiting. It was so beautiful. I'd never seen Baba alone. But I was very nervous because I had peeked. And I was afraid I'd disturb Baba, so I quickly put the curtain back and went back on the porch. And a few minutes later, Rano came out and said, "Charles, Baba wants you to say good morning to him." So, and then she disappeared. So I knew that somehow I had to go in there and say good morning to Baba. And I was very nervous, so I took my shoes off and I went in. And I looked and I saw Baba seated all the way at the end of the room. And I suddenly felt Baba was just looking at me. And I suddenly felt I felt like I couldn't walk. I just was so self-conscious. I'd never been alone with Baba before. And it seemed like such a long distance from here to there. So I just started. I know it was difficult. I just put one foot in front of another and I made my way to Baba, feeling very self-conscious. And it seemed like the longest journey from here to there. And Baba didn't move at all. He didn't say anything. He just, he didn't gesture. And he just was there. And finally, after a long, long time, I got up in front of Baba. And I stood there in front of him. And I looked at him. And Baba looked at me. Baba opened his hands like that. So I gave Baba a kiss. And then I stood there. And I looked at Baba. And then I remembered why I was there. And I tried to say, "Good morning, Baba." I don't remember any sound coming out, so I don't know whether I actually got the words out, because I was so nervous. But I tried to say, "Good morning, Baba." Baba just smiled at me, looked at me. And then he looked at me, and I looked at him. And it was the first time that I'd really ever looked directly into Baba's eyes. And Baba's eyes moved very rapidly so much of the time. But Baba was perfectly still, and he just looked at me. And so I looked back at him. And at that moment, I've never been able to say exactly what, but all I can say is I knew that, I don't know what I knew either. It's not that I had thoughts, but I knew. Later, it's something like Baba is Baba. Means, there he was there were no people around, there were no garlanding, there was no darshan program, there was nothing happening. And Baba didn't say a thing. Of course, there was no interpreter. I had never been in Baba's presence where there wasn't someone to interpret. And I couldn't speak. And Baba wasn't going to break his silence for me at that moment. There we were. And the feeling I had, or the only way I can describe the feeling is, he is complete. He needs nothing. He is everything in himself. That putting aside all the titles, all the words, everything, He is. He is. That's as close as I can get to what it felt like, and I just knew. Now, that must have only been a moment. I don't know. I mean, was I there 5 minutes? 30 seconds? No idea. An hour? It couldn't have been. But whatever time it was, Baba finally broke the spell and he went like this. Enough now. And then he hugged me. And then I knew I had to leave, and I don't know how I left. I have no memory of leaving. I only remember getting back on the porch. I think I must have tried to back out awkwardly. I didn't want to turn my back on Baba, but somehow I managed it, and I got back out on the porch, closed the doors, and didn't peek again. And I tell that because Baba wants us to know, and he wants every one of us who loves him to tell others what we feel about him. But he wants us to know that he is the one, the nameless one, the one beyond all limitations that lives in our hearts. He is the beloved that lives in our hearts. He is that one. And the fact that we limit him or try to limit him doesn't matter. That's part of the plan. Because even if we were to try to limit him, as Elizabeth used to say, she said, no one can limit Baba. And of course we limit him as soon as we say his name, as soon as we say anything about him, as soon as even we call him the avatar of the age. But that doesn't change who he is. And he wanted me to know that, and to say that, and to be convinced of that. Because it doesn't matter how many buildings or statues or photographs or books or experiences, he is beyond all of that. He is that one. When someone once asked Elizabeth, what do you like to call Meher Baba? Do you think of him as the avatar, the Christ, the God-man? She thought for a moment and she said, well, she said, no, I like when Baba says that he is the highest of the high. Because you see, she said, if tomorrow they were to find something greater than the avatar, that would be him. And that's how I felt in that moment, that he is. He just is. Now, all of the things that he gave us, the words he gave us, the life he lived, the photographs, the people who lived with him, the places he walked, all of these clues to him, his tomb, all of these clues to him are so important. We all know that. But they are not him. We all know that. They're clues. Religions are founded on the clues. And as Baba once said, religions are founded to hold me here in a certain way, in a certain form, by a certain understanding. But Baba says, I am not that. I am not this form that you see. But all of the clues point to that one who is beyond all the clues. And yes, he leaves in his physical form. And he leaves behind all of these beautiful things, the stories, the words, all to point to him in our hearts. All so that we may begin to find him as he really is, as the one who lives deep within our hearts. And anytime anyone, any one of us, experiences Meher Baba living in our hearts, that's his victory. And that's what he came for. That's what he lived for. That's what he gave his whole life for. Really, it was the only thing that he came for. Baba himself said that. I've come only to awaken. So he is the one who always points beyond himself to himself in every heart. And he is the only one that does that. As Baba says, do not search for God outside of you. God can only be found within you, for his only abode is the heart. And then again he says, don't lose heart, but keep me in your heart. And remember, I am always with you. Jai Baba.